Hi and welcome everyone to the ViaMonstra Academy office hours. This is where you can ask questions on anything related to Intune, MDT, ConfigMgr, PowerShell, Windows imaging, and pretty much anything related to that. My name is Johan. I'll be host for the next hour. So that being said, let the questions come in. All right, here we are. Happy to answer any questions you might have. I'm just going to switch over the screen to demo mode. Here we go. And that's not what I wanted to show, but office hours. Here we go. You have the chance to ask questions either here in the Zoom call for those of you that are joining, or either on Facebook, LinkedIn, or our live stream on YouTube. So either way works just fine. Keeping an eye on all those platforms. I have a big screen to my left with good few windows open, trying to catch all the different chat messages and whatnot that comes in here. So while we're waiting for the first questions to come in, you might have noticed that up on the Academy, we have a mini course now in June. That's not the one I wanted to show. I wanted to show the one that covers Always On VPN by Richard Hicks, June 14 on 9 a.m. Central Time, and the price for this one is just about right. 2 hours of great content for Always VPN, Always On VPN setups. But other than that, I see there are some questions coming in already. Here is on LinkedIn. The question is, have you used a redirect script, and how can we configure it correctly? I'm not entirely sure what redirect script that is referring to. The only redirects I've been using is basically IIS redirects for going from, say, HTTP to HTTPS sites, and that's something you set up in IIS Manager. So I think I need to have a little bit more details about that to be able to give more information. All right, here's a question in the Zoom call. With Cloud Management Gateway, even with the tick enabled to allow to act as a Cloud DP, if I look at the distribution points in the console, I also have on-premise DPs listed. Is there a way to force the Cloud DP portion to install again? This is an old CMD setup that was broken and given to me to fix. Let me take a look in a tenant that actually has a tenant, in a ConfigMgr server that actually has a CMD set up. So here I have a Cloud Management Gateway configured. This one is fully functional. And in my distribution points, that one actually does show up nicely as a distribution point. So if it doesn't, I would probably recreate it. I've had to do this a few times over the years with this one. As you can see, I'm still running a classic setup. These days we can't do that. They have to be a scale set or VM scale set. But I have been a few times where this one has broken down on me and I simply had to recreate it and re-upload the content to it. So it should obviously show up here. If it doesn't, something is borked with it. Follow-up question was, can I use the same name as serch? Yes, as long as that resource is deleted from Azure, you can create with the same name. But I have seen some folks actually reusing the same application ID, but just setting up the sort of config menu side of things and get it to work that way. So maybe try that first. Certificates you can always upload. You can even upload the same certificate twice to the site to the VM in Azure, because that's all what it is. The CMD is a virtual machine up in Azure. All right. Okay, so the follow-up comment regarding the redirect script was to redirect a user profile from an admin to another user to avoid creating an extensive profile for each user. Back in the days, it was quite popular to use the copy profile feature in the Windows setup to basically copy an admin profile to an individual user. Starting with Windows 10, that has been very not reliable. So I usually recommend not to use that feature at all. As far as a script that does the same, I actually haven't played around with. I only used the copy profile feature in the past. And as I mentioned, I would not recommend going that route. If you need to do changes, some basic scripting would be a better option. Basically, loading up the default user hive or the default profile, make some changes, close it down nicely, and then when users are created, they will of course get a copy of that one. That would be my recommendation there. For example, I posted a blog post earlier this week regarding some annoyances that I didn't like in Windows Server, where they basically have these borderless windows that I started up putting up recently. And you can fix that either through PowerShell through the current user, but also you can load it up in the default user hive and do the changes there. Load it offline, inject the changes, unload it, save it, and be done with it. So that would be a better option, I think. Let's see. There's another question here on LinkedIn. Can we deploy an application that requires user interaction through a sequence? Yes. Not supported, but yes. Let me just first get this blog post in the chat link. For those of you that have attending these office hours before, you know where these links are posted, but we have them up on the Academy. That's where they go up first under the office hours section on the Academy. Get them up on the YouTube site, usually within a few days after this. But this is where you find them first, and then they get added to YouTube a little bit later. So application interaction sequence. So back in the days when Microsoft launched the MDT integration with ConfigMgr, they also added in an executable ServiceUI that had been, or ServiceUI.exe, that has been very popular to do exactly just that, allow interaction in the sequence. There is no problem with WinP. WinP have always allowed interaction with sequences, no problem there. The problem is when you run it in Windows. So what I have here somewhere is the sequence that launches ServiceUI. And in this case, I'm running a PowerShell version of Gather. But then here I have a 64-bit PowerShell that I'm starting using ServiceUI.exe. It could also be a regular command prompt if you want to start that with ServiceUI.exe. Either way works just fine. And this one would allow you to interact with the process, even though it started within the sequence. So I have some older posts about this. It's been around for a long time. And if I can spell to ServiceUI, it would be great. So this one here, posted back in 2012, so a good 10 years ago. Putting that in the chat for you. I even seen some of the PowerShell deployment versions leveraging this to provide some sort of interaction. I'm not sure if the latest version still does it, but if you haven't seen that one, This is a downright amazing platform to launch installation as well in through ConfigMgr. It's been around for also quite a long time. All right. All right. Any other questions? I'll be happy to answer. While we're waiting for more questions to come in, I do like to highlight we have a newsletter on the blog, send out monthly updates on what's going on in the Intune config manage MDT space, etc. If you haven't signed up for that one, by all means, please do so. If you haven't signed up for our YouTube channel or subscribed to it, please do that as well. It's quite easy to find. YouTube/C ViaMonstra Online Academy, and this is where there is apparently a live event going on right now, which happened to be this office hours. I'm gonna borrow that name and put that in the chat for you so you have it available. Obviously, for the folks that are already in that stream, you already know where it is. And for whatever reason, that copy escaped my clipboard, so I'm going to copy it again. All right, another question coming in on LinkedIn. This is regarding Intune. Can we use a group or filter? Let's see. Can we group or filter application packages in Intune based on creation date, etc.? And can we create backup revision history of applications similar to ConfigMgr? And can we restore the source files that have been uploaded in Intune while creating an application? Oh, that was a lot of questions in one, but sort of. Intune itself doesn't have the same functionality as the application model in ConfigMgr, but with a little bit of scripting and help from the community, you can actually get pretty far in working with applications that way. For example, if I go to my Intune portal here, take a look at some of the applications that I have. Windows. For example, I have a bunch of test packages I'm using for peer-to-peer, but each of these applications, the options here is, well, I can delete it. If I go to edit it, check the properties, there is very little you can do here in terms of like duplicate it, deal with versioning, export, import of application, etc. You can't even easily get the content from here, but you can do it through PowerShell. So a solution that we've been showcasing here on the office hours many times is written by Micke Karlsson. He has an Intune management tool. So if I go to my E drive here, go to Intune. That is not Intune, is it? Let's see what we have here. Intune Management 350, I believe, is the latest version. So I'm going to start that one. So let's see what we have here. I've got my applications. So these are all my application objects. I can filter them. I can search for the same peer-to-peer applications. And here I can select applications and I can copy them, export them, import them, view them, etc. If you want to dive into the content, you have to use some other techniques. Oliver Kieselbach has been the sort of chief architect around that part. I will get to that link shortly. I'm just going to see if I can find a link to Intune Manager somewhere. All right. GitHub, Intune Manager, MECM. Shouldn't be too hard if I can spell. Go. 350 is still the latest version, but this tool is downright amazing. I'm going to get to that link. Cool. And then we have Mr. Oliver Kieselbach. Take you to his blog, and he recently made some updates on decoding Win32 apps. If you haven't read those posts, amazingly good information about really what's going on behind the scenes. I'll put that link in the chat for you. So the shorthand answer to a long question there, with a bit of community tools and with a bit of PowerShell, you can achieve very similar results to what you have in ConfigMgr. It's just that the Intune platform natively doesn't have the exact same capabilities in the MEM portal itself. So yeah, even the search for stuff in an application is limited when you're searching for stuff. All right, let's see. Another question coming in on the Zoom call here. Anyone seeing issues with group policies not applying correctly for VPN users? For example, an admin template section missing when outputting VP results. Not something that comes to mind. We have quite a lot of customers that are still running a lot of their users through VPN or connecting a lot of their users through VPN, and I haven't stumbled across any specific group policy setting that wouldn't apply because of that. So if anyone happen to know, anyone stumble across it, by all means put something in the chat or something in the other chats running on LinkedIn, Facebook or Twitter. No, not Twitter, YouTube. And I'll be happy to share that or relay that information further. What I have seen though is group policies being corrupt, but that's another story, and that usually affects more than just a specific individual setting. We have talked about a tool here in the platform a few times that we have up here. We have a tool that it's a baseline for ConfigMgr that you can use to detect local policy issues on a machine and decide to do something clever with it. So if you haven't seen that tool, it can be useful, or that baseline. It's a script really that does it here. So putting that in the chat. All right. Let's see what else. Another question here in the Zoom call chat. Let's see. There was one question regarding the recently announced issue for the Microsoft Support Diagnostics Tool. just to give you an idea what I'm talking about here. That was not the link, was it? Give me a moment. I have to go through Notepad, get this link, and I have way too many opens. So this was an issue that was discovered recently, and the question was basically, are people rolling out the workaround to disable the MSDT URL protocol? I haven't seen that. I saw something from Samilayo, I believe, yesterday, where he recommended using AppLocker to block this issue, but it's not something I have tested myself. If anyone has rolled out this workaround in their environment, by all means, feel free to share your experience here in the chat, but it's not something I have tested or have basically any more details around here, unfortunately. If I can find a tweet from Sami. Might just have been a tweet with like no link in it, but just a generic recommendation. Give me just a moment. Shouldn't take too long. Apparently up on the NIC conference, like most of the other European speakers at this point. I do not find that tweet, I'm afraid. All right, if I stumble across it, I will share it with, but there was basically a recommendation around AppLocker could be helpful to block stuff like this. All right. Let's see what else. Question here in the Zoom call. Hi, Johan. I received this error when trying to update the deployment share in MDT. Unable to mount the vim, so update process cannot continue. Have I seen this? Yes, I've seen it a few times. The most common reason is that you have antivirus software blocking the updating of boot images in MDT. But an even more common one is all the leftover temp folders that MDT creates when you update the deployment share. So if I go to one of my deployment shares here, not that file, but if I go to the temp folder on this system, what you actually will find often when working with MDT is that they have a bunch of leftover folders from it. Get rid of those and try again. That usually solves the problem for MDT refusing to update. As long as you have disabled the antivirus, get rid of those, try the update again and see if it works. Rare cases I have seen where you've done a lot of upgrades on ADK versions, where there are actually multiple WIM-GAP EDLL versions in the system, and that can also cause some problems. So search for that to make sure you don't have that in your environment. So basically, do a directory listing for WIM-GAP EDLL, and that should give you some clue. All right. So there was a follow-up comment, already tried disable antivirus. All right, then the next step, what I would do was recommend to clean out this temp folder and try again, possibly with a reboot in between, but definitely get rid of those. Obviously making sure basic things that they have enough disk space enough to do the update, etc. But that's the stuff I've seen. All right, question here in LinkedIn. I recently installed and promoted a ConfigMgr passive site system mode to active, and after doing so successfully, I noticed my CMD clients are all unable to communicate. The connection analyzer passes. Do you know if I have to re-upload some certs or reinstall the CMD role? This CMD is in a separate server I did not touch. I have not tried that at all. I do not know how to fix that scenario. That's probably going to be a support call, I'm afraid. My standpoint on the whole active passive thing in ConfigMgr is that so far, the customers I've worked with, people I've been talking to, it usually causes more troubles than it was there to save you from in the first place. I prefer to have a single primary site than have a backup. If it breaks, I restore the backup. I can do that within 2 hours without having to spend a day and a half troubleshooting a active passive something. I'm old school. I like keeping things easy, reliable, proven. So I'm sorry, I can't help you with that one. Another question on this one on Facebook. Are you familiar with O365 Shared Device License XML? No. The short answer is no. I'm not. I have not played around with that one. Sorry. If anyone happened to have on the call, by all means, please let me know. But basically, the question is, created one, change the value to 1 for the conference room, so many employees can use it. But apparently, they are getting a notice during logon to have a temporary access for 14 days until they get the license. So, don't know about that one. Hopefully, someone else on the call or either on the Facebook chat there can chime in with a comment on it. There's another question on LinkedIn from Drew. Are you aware of any way to block the Windows 11 update pop-up notification when allowing users to update themselves from Windows Update? I know about the enterprise policies that you can set to not do or even not serve or have Intune or ConfigMgr serve or Intune or Windows Update serve the Windows 11 update. But I'm not sure about the pop-up notification there. Check in my searches will reveal something. Script to apply block notification. Oh, maybe. I wonder if the same target feature update version will actually prevent it. Let me take a look. Here is a Windows 10 client. It's 21H2. Right, take a look in templates. components, Windows Update for business, and this one here. If you set this one to H2, I believe. Or if this one would do it. Wonder if this one is set on those machines, if you still will get that notification or that pop-up. If you haven't tried this one, this was where I probably would start testing this one. There is a link here. I have some additional, no, not so much. The supported versions, not so much of targeting. A good resource to double check with is, of course, our good friend Aria. Mentioned her name many times in these office hours. She is pretty active on Twitter, so if you send her a tweet, she usually replies. I'll put that link in the chat for you. Quite funny, I mentioned it many times, but for whatever reason, the Intune and ConfigMgr community decided on Twitter and LinkedIn to be the primarily two platforms that are being used. For many years, it was Twitter that was the big leader, but as of lately, I have seen more and more conversations on LinkedIn as well. So that's pretty cool. All right. Question coming in on the YouTube channel. If you're performing a SiteA to SiteB migration, can you keep the same site code? Not if you want to use the migration functions in ConfigMgr, then the other has to have a different site code. You can obviously do a backup restore if you just want to restore from have one server over here and you want to restore it to another server over here. Well, in this case, two different VMs. That's doable. Follow-up question was, if I wouldn't move to a new server, would I do a migration? Would I do a backup restore? I would do a backup restore if the old one is healthy. The only times it's kind of worth the time to do a complete migration is if the old setup is so bad that you don't want to have to deal with anything of it and you just want to spin up a new one later. But what I found over the years is that it's quite rare that the config managed site server is so bad that it cannot be quite easily fixed. It's a very customizable platform and there are so many resources out there, so you can most times you can actually fix what's bothering you on the old platform without having to actually migrate it to a new one. So I will do a backup and restore, and as I have shown here on the Academy before, Jason Sandys has probably the best guide on the topic. So if you search for recovery, he has an end-to-end guide on doing a site backup and recovery to a new server. I prefer doing this rather than doing like in-place upgrades of operating systems and other things. So I will definitely recommend that approach. But as always, learn about it in a lab first, figure out how it works. Do you need to restore, fix afterwards, and then do it in production. All right, any other questions? We have a whopping 23 minutes to go. right. I don't see any more questions coming in. Not on the live streams and not here on the Zoom call either. Right then, looks like I will be giving you a few minutes back to your day. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for the many good questions, and I'll see you again next Wednesday, 4:30 Central Time. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.